I am Dr. Betsy Congdon. I'm going to be giving you all a look into DART, the Double Asteroid Redirect Test, NASA's first planetary defense test mission. We are 4 days away from impacting with the asteroid Dimorphos. And I'm going to give you a look both at the mood and the mission control, as well as some of the results and things that we've been doing over this summer to learn more about our spacecraft, as well as the Didymos system, and then kind of bring you in and see and give you kind of an idea of the timeline of what we're going to experience over the next 4 days, the excitement that's happening. Planetary defense is important. It's also an international opportunity. Obviously, if an asteroid were to come in, it could have some very devastating consequences. DART is just one part of the overall system, looking at planetary defense. Hopefully, you might have caught the planetary defense panel we did earlier this week and got a better sense of the efforts both NASA and ESA are doing to make sure that we defend our planet. This chart here just gives you a sense, and really emphasizes that international component. These are fireballs reported last 25 years by US government sensors. They're obviously big ones that you've heard of, but they're also little ones. And so we need to make sure that we are ready. And DART is one of the things that's going to make sure we're ready. So DART launched November of last year and is impacting, as I said, this Monday, 4 days from now. It's a really exciting mission. We're going after a binary asteroid system, Didymos, and actually impacting the smaller of the two asteroids. And I'm going to give you some graphics of this so you can kind of get the sense, and changing its orbital period. So this is a system that it has no threat to Earth. But what we're going to kind of show is that if there was something that came up, we could actually deflect an asteroid and understand it. And so this mission is going after that kinetic impact. It's really neat to be going after a binary system because we can actually measure the change that we are going to impart here on Earth. This DART spacecraft is about 550 kilograms at impact, a little less than it was launched at. And when we impact, we'll be going 6.1 kilometers per second. Along for the ride, and part of the DART spacecraft is LICIACube, which is the Italian cubesat provided by ASI. It was actually successfully released just a little over a week ago, almost 2 weeks ago, which is really exciting, and we're talking to it. The solar arrays are deployed, it's all powered on, so it's getting ready to do its mission, watching DART impact. So less than a year ago, which from my perspective is a little crazy, we were sitting on top of a Falcon 9 rocket at Vandenberg Air Force Base, or Space Force Base. There you see the DART spacecraft in the fairing. It's almost like a little hood ornament in that fairing, very small, but obviously we want a lot of momentum going into that asteroid. And a person is standing there, so you kind of get a scale of DART's not very big, about the size of a bus, but mighty.
The job of Falcon 9 was to get DART on its way to the Didymos system. At this point, we've gotten enough velocity, enough speed to send DART off towards the Didymos system. And right now, we're in range of the ground station, so we can get all the data and so we can make sure we can actually capture the separation
confirmed.
And we just heard the call out for spacecraft separation. You can see the video of the DART spacecraft heading on its way to the Didymos system.
What a spectacular view of DART.
Yep.
Just floating away from the Falcon 9 second stage.
So on its way. That was the real video from launch. So as mentioning, I'm going to show you some video here about, or a graphic here about what I'm talking about. Here we have the Dimorphos and Didymos. Dimorphos going around in its original orbit, being the smaller of the two asteroids. And we're going to see DART's going to come in here very shortly and impact. Releasing LICIACube, as I mentioned, will be watching us. And once we impact, we see a new orbital period of Dimorphos. So how do you tell that from Earth? This is a graphic showing that. So think about, you've got on the ground where we're looking up at this system, and you see a certain level of brightness over time. When you're in this position, you can kind of see that both objects are reflecting. Then we come here, and the smaller asteroid has actually blocked some of the light that's coming from the bigger one, and so the brightness dips. When it's behind, you also have less area that's reflecting, and so you can see that it's behind. And so we can actually measure this orbital period from here on Earth, and it will, change once DART impacts. And we're going to be looking all over the world. You can see this is a map of the ground-based assets that are not only going to be looking on impact on Monday with all of us, of course, but also over the next year as we look at how we affected this system. James Webb Space Telescope as well as Hubble will also be looking. So it's really exciting. All eyes on DART. So zooming out a little bit just to give you a sense of where we are in space. Here we have the Earth orbiting in the middle orbit there in the inside around the sun. And you have the Didymos system, which has a larger orbit around the sun. Here we've launched DART, and DART you can see is hugging closely with Earth there. And we're going to come up and impact. So we're getting very close. You can see like we're almost there in just 4 days. So what's been going on this summer? Obviously, getting the spacecraft ready for this monumental impact. One of the things that we've been doing is the spacecraft is actually designed to autonomously navigate itself into that asteroid, and walk through those kind of last minutes with you here shortly. And one of the things we wanted to make sure is that system, which we call SmartNav, which is like the algorithm that's using the pictures from DRACO, our instrument, our optical telescope, to guide itself into the asteroid, actually can track all of these things and understand and make sure it can differentiate between the larger Didymos and the smaller Dimorphos. So one of the things we did this summer, and I'm going to show you some video of this, is actually use the Jovian moons to prove this out. So here's a picture. You can see that's Jupiter, the large body, and its various moons around it. It's a good test to see that we can actually track smaller objects and differentiate them when you have a larger object. And so what we did for this test is we actually treated Jupiter like Didymos. So you see in this video that it's being labeled Didymos when it recognizes that larger body. And then Europa, one of the Jovian moons, as Dimorphos. So it's a smaller moon, it's going around. Want to make sure we can track that smaller object along with the bigger object. And you can see here that we're tracking, we're picking up when we have, when it's going out of frame and acquiring the target. So that was a really exciting test that we completed this summer and successfully showed we can actually track two distinct bodies, a large one and a small one, which is important for Monday. We also, about a month ago, got our first eyes on our target, Didymos. So here is the very first picture. I know it's not much, but we were really excited about it, and it will only get better, of Didymos taken by DRACO, showing our target. And we're going to get even better and better images as we go, but it's exciting to be honing in on our destination. As I mentioned earlier, LICIACube was successfully deployed not that long ago, and it's all working and power positive and communicating with Earth. And so we're really excited for it to start its mission as part of the larger DART mission. So one of the fascinating things is how little we really know about where we're going. This is what we think Didymos, the larger of the object, the one that we know actually more about, looks like based on what we've been able to see to date. You can see, we're kind of guessing at the shape. We understand that it's about 780 meters, but as we get closer, we're going to understand more and more about the larger of the two asteroids. So this is a plot looking at what we think we're going to see as we get closer and closer. So start on the right-hand side of this plot and read it to the left. So on the right-hand side of this plot, we're 250 minutes out from impact. Not very long, right? And we're seeing Didymos. The bright greens, or the bright colors in this plot, are basically the various distributions of what Didymos could be based on its brightness, based on what we don't know, right? We don't know everything we need to know about Didymos, so we kind of have a range of possible outcomes of how of when we're going to track it and exactly how many pixels it's going to be at a certain time. And you can see there's some pretty big ranges. As we get closer and closer to impact on the left side of the graph, you see Dimorphos come into frame. And so that one we know even less about. We have a large range on when we could really see it. So I'm giving estimates of when is Dimorphos going to come into frame, when are we going to start locking on it. But you can see that those are only estimates. There's actually ranges of when we could come and see it. And so dependent on how bright Dimorphos actually ends up being, it will change when we actually see it. And obviously the spacecraft accounts for this. We do tests for this. We go through what would we do if it's more dim than we think, if it's a different shape than we think, and have gone through different scenarios as part of our preparations. So I mentioned we don't know that much about Didymos, and you kind of got a sense from the left graph that we don't know that much about Dimorphos. There are lots of different possibilities of what it could be, and it won't really be until those last seconds and minutes as we're honing in, this being a simulation, that honing in, that we're going to get a real sense of what it's made out of, what is its shape, how bright is it. And so those last few hours will be really exciting. We'll be learning both about Didymos and Dimorphos. So let me take you into mission control and talk mission operations and talk a little bit about what are we doing? What are we doing now? What are we doing the next 4 days? What are we doing in those last 4 hours? So here, we're almost to the end of this graph. We're less than 30 days out. We're 4 days out. And so what have we been doing for the last 30 days? So you can see the little red dots there are what we call OpNavs, optical navigation. So we're using our optical telescope, and we're taking pictures of the star fields, understanding where Dimorphos is, tracking, making sure we are exactly where we think we are. And you can see that those are kind of been continuously going over the last couple of days. We are doing correction maneuvers. There's TCMs listed there, so kind of those major navigation maneuvers. You can see we've successfully completed 2 of them quite recently. We have a couple coming up. And those are all working their way towards impact. About 24 hours out, our last correction maneuver. We're doing some OpNavs, again, similar to what we've been doing over the last 30 days as we go through. There are some things that just are talking to the spacecraft, making sure we have the right health of the spacecraft, and that we're giving it all the information it needs. The parameter dumps are happening, and it is part of that. We have command loads and ephemeris updates, so just making sure that the spacecraft has all the information it needs to go autonomous. In this whole period of time, we're doing 2 tests, the SmartNav streaming test and DRACO streaming test, where we're just checking out those systems, kind of doing the last updates, making sure that they're acting exactly how we think they are, and making sure that everything is on track. Because about 4 hours out is when we go into terminal phase and we go completely autonomous. So the spacecraft needs to be healthy and ready for that last step. And so this is the preparation for that. So let's go into those last 4 hours. Those last 4 hours, we have a bunch of critical events as the spacecraft kind of makes its way through its important activities, autonomously, as I noted. We're going to transition to terminal mode right around 4 hours. And we're starting enabling those autonomous maneuvers. And from there, the plan is to let the spacecraft do what it needs to do. I mentioned there was some uncertainty about when we would really see Dimorphos and what we know about it. So it's about the earliest moment we think, based on all the information we know. It's about 80 minutes. Probably be a little later than that, but we'll see how that all shapes out. So that's the earliest. We start detecting Dimorphos. So at this point, we are transitioning from focusing on Didymos, the system, into focusing on Dimorphos, the smaller one. We begin locking in on Dimorphos and targeting it, and go into precision lock and starting to ignore Didymos about 20 minutes out. There we want to focus and make sure that we're aiming at the smaller asteroid. I mentioned that the plan is to go completely autonomous, 4 hours out, but we do have some ability to send commands up to 5 minutes before, and that's part of our contingencies. So of course, as you're preparing for an important mission like this, we go through all sorts of contingencies and practices to make sure that if things don't go as planned, because this is hard and we're not exactly sure what's going to happen. No one's ever tried this before, that we have ability to adjust and do whatever we need to. And so we can actually do that up to 5 minutes beforehand. We stop the smart nav maneuvers about 2.5 minutes before impact. So it's just gliding at that point. So that's like our last time that we're doing any adjustments. It's just headed in and impact. So the mood right now is one of nervous excitement. Of course, everyone's been planning and working not only in the last couple months. I've kind of taken you through the last couple months, but years of planning have gone into this mission. And even the ideas and the thoughts of this mission go back many, many years. So this is a picture of the Mission Operations Center at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab in Maryland in the US. And this is the team. This is earlier this month. They just finished a mission dress rehearsal, going through the various things that are going to happen on Impact Day. You can see lots of smiles, lots of excitement. This is really hard. And it has been a journey to figure out exactly how to do this. But everyone is confident and really excited about the next couple of days. During this mission dress rehearsal, I even practiced cheering for loss of signal. Got to get that, got to get ready, make sure your good cheer face is on, and get that excitement out. So there's a lot of happy faces. Hopefully you caught the Planetary Defense panel earlier this week where more information was gone about, but DART is only one piece of the planetary defense puzzle. It is really a international effort. DART is impacting here in 4 days, but we're really excited for Hera to come, which is an ESA satellite that's going to actually go and study more about Dimorphos. And we're going to learn more about the DART impact crater as well as Dimorphos itself. And they're very complementary missions. This is really highlighting the successful international cooperation. And so that rendezvous will happen in 2026. So I hope that you got a sense of all the excitement that we currently have on the DART mission, what we've been doing the last couple of days and months, getting ready for Monday. I really encourage you to be following along our live coverage. There's some information on how to see the live coverage on Monday evening or time dependent on where you will be. Obviously, we've all come here from many places, but hopefully you'll follow along. That will be a really exciting broadcast. We're actually going to be not only talking to experts and getting a sense of the importance of DART and DART as a big picture, but actually live going into the control room and getting some updates from Elena Adams, our mission system engineer, who's going to be telling everyone exactly what's happening in mission control. So I encourage you to follow along. If you haven't already, and hopefully many of you have, signed up to be a planetary defender. It's really important that we all join in that excitement. And then I also have all of the Twitter and Facebook and various Instagram, various social media feeds to follow on Monday as we watch DART successfully hit Dimorphos. Thank you. I have only a little bit of time because there is a second talk that I know we're all excited about. This seems to be having some issues. Do you have any questions? Thank you. What is the team most excited to learn about after impact? So it totally depends on the person, I would say. One of the exciting things about doing science and engineering is all of the very important aspects of it. So I'm sure that the guidance and control engineers that have been working so hard for so many years on this smart nav system and figuring out how to autonomously guide using this optical instrument DRACO are going to be really excited to see exactly how that worked, how far off they were. They have all sorts of algorithms. The scientists I know are really excited to see how much ejecta comes out, which basically, it's not only how fast the mass and velocity that we're hitting, but also the amount of ejecta that's going to come off once we hit, because that actually adds thrust. So if we have more ejecta, we're going to actually move Dimorphos farther. And so there's a lot of questions about how much ejecta, how much stuff is actually really going to come off, how much extra thrust are we going to get. And I know there's a lot of excitement about seeing what that is. So. And then, of course, as we get Hera and we actually understand Dimorphos even better, that will be even more exciting. Got a question about the speed chosen for impact. So obviously, it's a kinetic impactor, so the mass and the velocity are the two main things that matter there. The goal was to impact the orbital period a certain amount, I showed before, about 1%. And so both the mass and the velocity being a more important factor, were both taken into account. And it was kind of a mission design to make sure that we could impact it enough that we could deflect and have the right amount of energy transferred. Let's see here, just looking at. Got a question about what happens if we miss. That's one of the contingencies that we've planned for is if this doesn't go to plan, and the spacecraft basically goes into a conservation mode for the propellant on board, and we have some opportunities to go back and have another try, and that's one of the contingencies that have been practiced for. How do you choose the Didymos system? The Didymos system is really nice because of its location, which you kind of saw in one of those graphics, as well as the fact that it's a binary asteroid system. The binary asteroid system really allows us to do some interesting science from the ground, which is really exciting because once impact happens, even before Hera gets up there, we're going to learn a lot about how DART managed to impact Dimorphos, and we'll learn a lot more about the system from the ground using all of those telescopes that are distributed throughout the world. So, question about fuel. The main system on DART is a hydrazine system. That's the main propulsion system. We've obviously used a good amount of that getting and as part of all these maneuvers that I've been talking about, but there will be some on board. And as I mentioned, that's part of the contingency, being able to go back to if we need to. One question about Dimorphos and what it actually looks like. We really don't know what Dimorphos's shape is. It could be a variety of different things, and actually the team has gone through all sorts of different shapes of, okay, so what happens, when we, if it's a donut shape? That's like an interesting question. So there's all sorts of different shapes and thoughts of what Dimorphos could really look like, and we honestly don't know. We're going to learn along with the rest of the world as we get closer and closer. Getting down in time, so. Question about hitting the smaller asteroid rather than the larger. So obviously, the smaller asteroid you can have a greater impact on it. Also, that those light curves that I was showing. The goal here is not only to show that we can do those smaller asteroids. If you listened a little bit to the talk on Tuesday, we talked a little bit about why Dimorphos is actually a really nice size. It's a size that we really are interested in at about 160 meters. And so we want to prove that those are the types of things we want to deflect. So it's actually a really nice size. But also by hitting the smaller one, we can actually look at those brightness curves I was showing earlier from the ground, and we can tell how much we hit it without having to be there in person watching, though we are really excited to have LICIACube there and showing all the action. So I have run out of time. But I appreciate you coming and asking all these great questions. Please follow along with DART on Monday. We're really excited for it.